Oh, my God. Look who's on the phone, though.
Michio Kaku. Hey, you know about the birds?
You hear this
falling
whole
from the
thing
sky.
about the birds falling out of the sky there in Arkansas?
Something about the birds, they fell out of the sky.
Fell out of the sky. That's pretty much.
You don't know?
Yeah, the birds, they were flying and
they fell out of the sky.
They fell down there.
No one has any clue.
Just sit back and watch.
There's a bunch of theories.
We'll get to your silliness in a minute. We got serious stuff to discuss right now.
Dr. Michio Kaku.
Michio Kaku.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Kaku.
It's always a pleasure when we have you on our show, sir.
And by the way, Dr. Kaku has a book out. It's Physics of the Future, How Science Will Change Daily Life by 2100. That's, the year, 2100.
Yeah, but the problem with the book, sir, you have a flying car on the cover. That's never going to happen.
By the year 2100, I think you're going to be very wrong.
Really?
You could trust other people with a fucking car in the sky?
We already have flying cars, except they're very expensive.
Yeah, they're called airplanes.
No. We have real flying cars. I did a Discovery Channel program. We filmed the flying car.
I saw that thing
very
with the...
expensive. And
Yes.
price will go down over the decades. And we are talking about projecting to the year 2100.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Yeah, but you're talking about people trying to navigate into Manhattan without hitting buildings?
Yes. We're talking about supermagnets using superconductivity.
Okay, now you're showing me a thing or two.
That we will harness in the coming decades.
So we're going to take the trust out of the flying car equation.
It's a question of economics. Jetpacks. Jetpacks are also possible today, except they're just very expensive.
It's got an old school phone.
I know.
Why do you have an old school phone, sir?
That's just his ringtone.
Oh.
I'm sure of it.
Okay.
Has to be. Dr. Kaku's there with one of those black phones with a curly wire going there. Hello. Well, Dr. Kaku, let's get right into this. A lot of controversy over the past week or so with these birds falling out of the sky.
Right. We think we have the smoking gun. We think we know what's happening here.
Oh.
First of all, you have the red-winged blackbird, which flies in very tight formation, unlike other birds, which spread out. You follow the leader.
Watch this.
And if the leader gets disoriented because of fireworks, thunderstorm, lightning, microbursts, or whatever, then the whole flock could commit mass suicide.
Wow.
Just like lemmings, when the lead lemming goes off a cliff, you have hundreds of thousands of lemmings that commit mass suicide. The red-winged blackbird's eyesight is rather poor. They're flying at night. They get disoriented. And the lead bird maybe makes a nosedive right into the ground or right into a house.
And they all just follow suit.
Well, they picked the wrong lead bird then.
Wow.
That's right, the mass suicide. Now, believe it or not, these events take place every other year in the United States. 16 recorded incidences over the last 30 years involving over 1,000 blackbirds at a time. So these mass die-offs happen every other year, except they don't attract media attention. This time it did because we have simultaneous die-offs of fish and pelicans now and birds in Sweden. And however, it is largely a coincidence that all these events are taking place pretty much at the same time.
The one problem I have, you said every other year. Why is this happening only every other year?
Approximately, on average, 16 events over the last 30 years, averaging about every other year. Of course, it's not like clockwork. We're talking about animals.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But animal die-offs do take place rather regularly, but they never make the national media.
Yeah,
This
see,
time
now
it
this
did.
did, and it got all hyped up, and the press made like a frenzy out of it.
Right, a feeding frenzy with the internet.
Imagine that.
Wires
Why would they
burning
do
up.
that?
People thought it was government secret experiments.
Right.
Yeah.
Saucers or whatever.
Well,
The HARP project.
You got the conspiracy people saying, it's chemtrails, it's, like Ann said, the HARP project.
Yeah.
But it's just, it is what it is. You got a lead bird that gets confused, and then there's a mass suicide.
See, that's what we were thinking. Dr. Kaku, I also want to ask you about chemtrails versus contrails.
Before we do that, I'm sorry, because stay with the animals for a second. The fish dying.
Yeah. We think we know what's happening there. There are three possible culprits. One is chemical poisoning, one is pathogens or disease, and third is trauma. And you can rule out chemical poisoning because 95% of the fish that died in Arkansas were of one species, bottom-feeding drumfish. If it was a chemical poisoning, you get several species being dying off.
So fucking smart.
However, it takes about a month to culture tissue to make sure that it is disease. So disease is the number one culprit, we think, in the mass die-off of 100,000 drumfish, off the coast of Arkansas.
Yeah.
What would trauma be, Doctor? You said trauma.
For example, in the oceans, we have the Navy using high-powered sonar. Some people think that disorients the whales, and you have mass beaching of whales, which is, rather unusual. But these mass beachings of whales usually take place in the vicinity of sonic tests by our subs. And so the Navy, as a precaution, is now restricting some of its sonar tests so that we don't disorient animals in the ocean.
Okay. Whales. Yeah. It's in a way of our military.
And then they die on the beach like that.
So now we've explained the birds and the fish, and now, Ant wants to know
about this contrail versus chemtrail. Have you heard about the chemtrails that people are talking about?
You mean that launching of an object off the coast of Los Angeles just about 2 months ago?
No, but we could talk about that, too.
No. Well, that was probably not an ICBM. It was probably not a rocket.
Yeah.
It was probably an airplane.
Right.
Believe it or not. And the reason for that is that if you look at the velocity of that object taking off off Los Angeles, it didn't accelerate. If it was a ballistic missile, it would be accelerating out to about 15,000 miles per hour. And it didn't accelerate at all. It was at constant velocity. And it also executed mid-course maneuvers. Ballistic missiles execute minor maneuvers, not large maneuvers.
Yeah.
So we tend to think it was an airplane. And, if you live next to an airport, you see these trails of water vapor all the time.
Yeah. See, it's not chemicals. It's, it's contrails. It's water vapor.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
I want to believe in conspiracies because the real answers are too boring.
It's always more fun.
They certainly are more fun. Dr. Michio Kaku, whose new book is called Physics of the Future, a book I certainly will read.
I like
I'm
that.
excited.
Coming out in March.
Coming out in March. Good.
What are some of the things we're going to look forward to in the year 2100?
Well, something that we're going to have within maybe 10 years' time.
I would say
nothing. The Internet will be so compact, it'll be in your contact lens.
Contact lens? What if we don't wear them? You miss out.
Well, if you have the Internet in your contact lens, you'll be able to identify anyone's face. When you talk to somebody, you'll see their complete biography right next to their face. And you'll see subtitles. Subtitles if they speak in Chinese or German.
Oh, wow, that's okay.
Your contact lens will translate on the fly what the person is saying and put it right underneath that person's face as you talk to that person. If you're an artist, you'll be able to recreate any kind of sculpture with your hands just by waving your hands in space. And your contact lens will then create this image of a beautiful work of art that you're creating. Architects will love this because architects will be able to create buildings and rooms and furniture just in the contact lens by waving their hands.
Doctor, I already see all these things when I talk to people. Does that mean there's something wrong with me?
Well, there's a theory that says yes. And in addition, if you are a student taking a final examination, these contact lenses could save your life.
How's that?
Because you'll be able to see the exam answers in your contact lens as you take the final.
Well, I bet they'll say no contact lenses during the final.
Well, how do they tell?
They'll have to pop that out.
I don't want to talk about things that are going to be around in 2100 because we're not going to be around. I want to know what's going to happen in our life.
Well, he was just saying that's like 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
That's a 10-year thing. Okay.
The Internet's a biggie. I like, you know what I really like, Dr. Kaku, is all the information that's available now right at our fingertips with our various smartphones. Where are these going to be headed in the next few years?
Well, we sort of know the answer. The future of the computer is to pretty much disappear. It'll be everywhere and nowhere. The wallpaper, for example, will be intelligent. So when you put wallpaper up, you'll be putting up computers.
It's already more intelligent than some of the people we have working for us, Dr. Kaku.
That's right. Flexible computer screens already exist. And they're going to get cheap enough so that we'll be able to, use wallpaper, which is intelligent. So the next time you want a wall screen, you just talk to the wall, and there's your wall screen. You want to redecorate the house, you simply talk to the wall, and the house redecorates itself.
Talk to the wall.
Color,
changes color, right? So it would be just a TV screen virtually.
Wow, how cool!
And then you could change
your entire wall, basically a gigantic TV screen.
Can you make it into a jungle theme?
You could.
What?
Can you make your wall into a jungle theme by just talking to it?
Well, yeah, anything you want. Even glass will be intelligent. We have intelligent glass already in the laboratory. So as you look out the window, if you don't like what you see, you can simply change what you see.
Could we do that to a engineering studio room off of our main studio? If we don't like what we see, we can just tint it so we don't have to look at it.
Can I do that to the faces of the women I sleep with?
Yeah, well, now you can change it to be anything you want. You simply talk to the glass, and intelligent glass already exists. We have PC screens that are totally transparent. And as you talk to the window, you can pretty much change it into anything you want.
Oh,
so the point here is that computer power is going to be so cheap and so plentiful that everything around us will be intelligent, maybe except us.
I think it's pretty obvious that within a few years, entire walls are going to be TVs.
It could be, right, because the cost of computers drops by half every 18 months.
Right.
So if you just simply extend this out to 10 years, computers will be 1,000, 10,000 times cheaper than they are now.
Yeah, but the TVs are getting bigger and more affordable, and I think you're going to see ridiculous TVs in everyone's places.
Well, Max...
Yeah, in fact, even your clothing is going to be intelligent.
No, it
if
won't.
you have a heart attack today, you can just die on a lonely country road. In the future, your clothes will upload your entire biography, medical history, call an ambulance, and locate your position by GPS, all if you are unconscious.
Just don't wash it.
You'll never die alone in the future.
Oh, it's like OnStar in your shirt. That's pretty cool.
Hey,
Right, you'll have a doctor in your clothing in the future.
I don't like that.
Hey, we want to ask about another thing that happened very recently. The weather machine, I think it was in the desert of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah?
Was that real, or was that some fake newspaper or whatever?
Well, there's no such thing as weather modification. That is maybe 100 years into the future.
But they said they made it rain 50-something times in the desert.
Well, I've been to Abu Dhabi several times, and I tell you, the desert is pretty dry there. And if they could make it rain, they would make a lot of money. But I tend to doubt that story.
He tends to doubt that then. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any real proof. You would
like
think
that.
they would have had video of it if they're making it rain in the desert, right?
Doctor,
the CIA tried very hard during the Vietnam War to modify the weather during the monsoon season in Vietnam. They failed. If the CIA can't do it...
Wait, did you know this, Ant, during the Vietnam War? They were trying to... How did they...
I was involved in it, Opie.
By iodide ice crystals, by seeding the clouds, they hoped to induce the monsoons over the Viet Cong so that the Viet Cong guerrillas would be washed out.
Just got him mad.
So they tried to use that as a military weapon, basically, and they failed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, Lex Luthor was running the Vietnam War.
Mr. Luthor.
Very good.
Did you see, Dr. Kaku, did you see this coming with computers really pretty much getting rid of the typical tower-based computer in your house? Did you see this coming where it would be really at your fingertips in these smartphones?
Yeah, pretty much. I wrote a book called Visions in the late 1990s where I predicted what's going to happen by the year 2010, 2020, 2030, and we're right on schedule. If you read my book, the predictions I made are right on schedule.
Really?
With computer power. We have Moore's Law. We can predict with very good accuracy how powerful and how cheap computers are going to be because prices drop every 18 months.
You know what? But there is the human factor in there that's very hard to factor into something like that. I understand working with numbers and knowing that the computer prices will drop and the technology gets better over a fixed rate that you guys can pretty much predict. But there's the human factor of what we wanted. Now, what I wanted back in the 90s was a big computer, a big monitor, all that stuff, not knowing that in a few years I would want a very small handheld computing device like my iPhone, and my television, being a flat screen on the wall, is now turning more into a hybrid of my computer and my television with the likes of things like Apple TV and Netflix and all the other ways to deliver the media to my house. See, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, in fact,
But I'm
John
not a
von
scientist.
Neumann, the mathematical genius who helped to create the electronic computer, he made 3 predictions in the 1950s about the future of his invention. All 3 predictions were wrong.
Oh, really?
He said that only governments would be able to afford computers.
Mm-hmm.
Second, that computers would be so fantastic we can compute the weather. And third, computers will only be controlled by the elites and by small groups of people. Now we know that computers, instead of becoming bigger, became smaller, more powerful, and that weather prediction is still impossible with a computer.
Yeah,
So
it's gotten a
wrong
little
on
more accurate, but they still don't know. I love that. They get on and still just don't know. They have to guess and say, we think if the weather takes this track, that we'll get this amount of snow. You would think by now it would be an exact science.
Yeah, but we have something called chaos theory.
I know
chaos theory.
hey, we all saw Jurassic Park.
Right.
The drip of water.
Chaos theory basically says that when you have very large numbers of molecules and large numbers of particles, it's extremely difficult to predict. In fact, a modern computer, it's impossible to exactly predict the weather. You can only predict general features, qualitative features, not quantitative features.
Right.
So chaos theory means that the stock market, the weather, the coast of a seashore, these are things which are rather unpredictable, even with our best computers.
I just read
weather modification is going to be beyond our control for quite a while.
I just read a bunch of stuff online about butterfly effect and chaos theory. I just wanted to say those. I did so I feel like I know something.
What did you think about it, Joe DeRosa?
I thought the movie was a poor representation of the theory and the effect.
We have a movie critic here.
I think that stuff's really interesting. The theory of everything. I was reading about the theory of everything.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah,
that's his
it's
job.
incredibly complex. But actually, Doctor, is there a book you can recommend? I mean, I would like to read some of your stuff, but even reading it on Wikipedia is confusing. I mean, is there a book that kind of...
Yeah, well, get a copy of my book, Hyperspace.
Okay.
It was a national bestseller when it came out. It's the first major book on string theory and the theory of everything.
Oh, my God, I can't read about
String theory is fascinating, but I find you have to read the same paragraph
a million
3
times.
or 4 times before you know what the hell.
I could barely read about string cheese and understand it.
It's one of those books where you feel your brain exploding in front of your eyes.
Yes, Dr. Kaku.
Sorry, Dr.
I do
Kaku,
understand that. It's very. It is a concept. Unless you or one of your colleagues, it's very hard for the layman, even when it is put in what you people think of as layman's terms. Very hard to wrap your mind around it, even if you understand the words. You know what I mean?
If you understand music, you can understand string theory.
Here it is.
Oh, boy.
Here's the analogy for the dummy.
Yeah.
How Dr. Kaku, how is music like a string theory?
Because everything you see around you is basically the lowest octave of tiny little vibrating strings. Electrons, protons, neutrons, they're nothing but the lowest octave. The next higher octave is dark matter, which we find in outer space, which is invisible. But we represent, representing by electrons, neutrons, protons, are nothing but little tiny vibrating strings vibrating in the lowest octave.
Vibrating.
So chemistry is nothing but the melodies you can play on these strings.
What?
The universe is a symphony of strings.
The universe is a symphony of strings.
And the mind of God that Albert Einstein eloquently wrote about would be cosmic music resonating through 11-dimensional hyperspace.
All right, finally it's spelt out in a way I could
now
grasp.
I can understand.
I can wrap my mind around that.
I seriously learned about this stuff from listening to Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa used to talk about this a lot. He used to talk about the great vibration. Everything was a musical note, and music was the thing that defined everything.
You should have been talking about his prostate.
I know, getting that checked out. Might still be around.
Why do you ignore that?
Ah,
There was a lot to talk about there.
prostate was made out of music.
I had something I wanted to talk to Dr. Kaku. I wanted to ask him another question.
The aluminum?
It's so
And other things that the
none of
government
that
is
stuff.
doing? No?
Just cool, physics stuff,
Futuristic stuff.
space, and but my mind's so full of things.
Right.
That just oozes out my ears.
Have we covered it all? Is there something else happening in the world that we should cover, Michio Kaku?
In the coming months, we're going to discover not just one, but perhaps dozens of Earth-like twins in outer space. Planets perhaps with oceans, liquid oceans.
Oh.
And this is the Kepler satellite currently orbiting the Earth right now, which is going to lock on to to small Earth-like planets in outer space. And that's going to give us an existential shock. At night, when you look at the night sky, you'll realize that in many of the familiar constellations, there are planets that look very much like the Earth. And we'll wonder whether or not anyone's looking back at us, wondering whether or not Earth has any life on it.
Yeah, isn't it a bitch we can't just kind of, span that gap and really kind of check out other beings? It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
And again, this is going to be in the next few months. The Kepler satellite's been orbiting around for over a year and getting evidence of hundreds of large planets. But now we hope to get zero in on small planets, Earth-like planets. And then the question is there any life on these planets?
Yeah.
We're going to then zero in on radio emissions and see whether or not any of these planets emit radio.
It's kind of embarrassing. When we were growing up, we were told there were how many planets? I even forgot the number.
9.
There are 500 planets now we've discovered in outer space.
500, which means it's 5 million.
We were told there were 9 in our own solar system.
Yeah, but they pretty much said 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about other solar systems. They're like, no, there's pretty much one solar system and it has 9 planets. That's sort of what we learned growing up.
Yeah.
But now we've identified over 500 solar systems in outer space.
Yeah.
It is ridiculously arrogant to be like, I'm going to recreate the entire solar system with these styrofoam balls. This is all of it.
That's what we did.
That's all it is.
All you need to know about. We'll never go further than this.
Here you go, Teach.
Dr. Kaku, I want to ask you an Einstein question.
Okay.
I was watching a program the other day, and of course, I love Einstein and his famous theory of relativity and traveling at the speed of light and how it is not attainable because mass increases as we approach the speed of light, and it would become impossible to power something past a certain speed.
Right.
All I could think of is, what's this crazy-haired guy telling everybody this, and all of a sudden it's law? Like, how does he know? And how did he know? And why is it so? Why is it the law now that everybody accepts?
Well, first of all, we measured every single day. Your GPS system, for example, would go bonkers if Einstein was wrong. Pentagon generals have to be briefed on Einstein's theory of relativity, or else they cannot fight a war. We're talking about atomic bombs, GPS, your iPod, this phone conversation. All of it is a direct consequence of Einstein's theory of relativity.
Thank God for that guy.
A modern society would collapse if it wasn't for the contributions of Einstein. So relativity is tested every single microsecond. We test relativity.
No, I understand relativity is easy to kind of grasp, things being relative to other things. I understand that. It's this concept.
What?
Well, it is things being relative.
I understand relativity, things being relative to other things.
No, I take into consideration relativity on a daily basis. I do think about things relative to my car, being inside the car and outside the car. Right. There's a relationship to the speed of the vehicle, the speed of things outside my vehicle, and the relativity. Like if somebody's behind me and they're doing the same speed I'm doing, relative to me, we might as well be parked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And also time is relative. So time beats at different rates throughout the universe.
Not if you do a radio show.
On the moon.
Some days are longer than others. But yes,
it's faster on the moon than it does on the Earth.
Yeah, I wish the show was on the moon.
Last month, and they have a big moon in the background of the TV set. And I told Conan that time beats faster on that moon than on the Earth. And time beats slower on Jupiter than it does on Earth. So time is also relative.
And this is because of mass?
Because of gravity. Large gravity speeds up.
That's what I meant by mass.
Weak gravity slows down time. And again, we measure this with our satellites. GPS would go bonkers if it wasn't for
Now, why, though, as an object approaches the speed of light, does it gain more mass? This seems to me something I cannot grasp.
Well, first of all, the energy is being turned into mass. That's why it gets heavier. And the exact equation of the energy turning into mass is E equals mc squared.
Yes.
That is precisely how much mass is accumulating as you go faster and faster and faster. So the very fact that we have hydrogen bombs is a consequence of E equals mc squared, is a consequence of the fact that your speed of energy turns into mass. You get heavier.
E equals mass times the speed of light squared.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, so the energy itself is converted to mass.
That's right. That's
so
right.
then the more energy you need to move this mass is creating more mass.
You got it.
Holy Jesus, Dr. Kaku.
That's right.
Yeah, you have just...
I think Anthony missed his calling.
This is a moment for me
that most people have had it in the 50s.
All right, Danny, stomp on my parade or rain on it.
Stomp on my parade.
Blow on my parade. Oh, Dr. Kaku, no, believe me.
What happened?
It is. Thank you. I finally got a grasp on it.
All right. Why don't we let the good doctor go?
After that, where else are we going? Dr. Kaku, thank you so much.
Okay.
Physics of the future, how science will change daily life by the year 2110.
Out in March.